think we are ready to go if you are. Yep. This morning, Brigadier General Dale Lyles, the Adjutant General of Indiana's National Guard, and I will provide an update on what we know at this moment, real time, regarding Camp Atterbury being selected as another temporary home and processing center for Afghan evacuees. But first, I did want to say a word or a few words about one of our Hoosier own, one of America's finest and forever best, Corporal Sanchez from Logansport, who gave his life so that we and others might enjoy the sweet taste of freedom. And at just 22, Corporal Sanchez, the man in receipt of orders, stood in a very dangerous gap and leaves citizens like us forever in his debt. And we must never forget and always remember, always honor his legacy and vow to be there for his now Gold Star family in the days ahead. He served so that the very evacuees who will get off the plane tired, off balance, psychologically strained, hungry, dealing with health issues, maybe with only a backpack to their name, little money, if any, so that maybe they could enjoy and appreciate that very same peace and security that we do right now here at home. So to Corporal Sanchez's family, we vow to be here every day forward, and we keep the family in our prayers as well as the 12 others, men and women in uniform, that we recently lost as Americans, and the over 2,000 over the last 20 years who gave the ultimate sacrifice for us. All the wounded warriors out there who left pieces of their body and soul in a war-torn country on a battlefield far, far away between good and evil. And again, we're a patriotic state, and we will prove it in the days going forward. Yesterday morning, we were in receipt as well, officially, as was our congressional delegation, being notified by the Army North Command that up to 5,000 Afghan evacuees will be making their way to Camp Atterbury for a matter of, as has been described to us, for a matter of weeks, not months. And I'll ask General Lyles to provide some detail about what we've been informed over the course of the last week, really 2 weeks, in conversations, questions that I had directly to Homeland Security, the answers that we received, and more, since a couple days have now passed since then. But if you could, General Lyles, if you would go over, the basics, and we can get into detail, the when and how active duty will be arriving, Army active duty will be arriving in a supportive role, the when and how the evacuees will arrive at Camp Atterbury, how many that we know of right now on the roster, men, women, and children, when we will know that, ultimately. how they are all being vetted, what their status is at various times, including their mobility inside the wire or inside the gate and ultimately outside. If you could cover, this is a lot I know, and I'll help. If you could cover not just the vetting, but then the testing, the vaccination process. What services are we as a state going to be in our supportive role to our federal partners on the hook for? What's it cost? Who pays? The dual status relationship now with General Winslow. And then, I promise this will be my last thing, but then finally, and this is something that I'm really proud of, we have been overwhelmed by, I see Allison Barber here, we have been overwhelmed by Hoosiers who are rushing forward to say, how can I help? And we want to make this as efficient as possible in that process. And so whether it's the Red Cross or a church or an individual, we're not looking to gather my old clothes, even though I think that might help. There are ways to make a significant and profound difference in someone's lives, but it has to be orderly, and that's part of our mission. So you taking notes and writing down words there. So if you could just kind of give us an update on where we are now that we have confirmation, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Governor. Appreciate the opportunity today to provide some information on where we are right now with Afghan evacuees. Before I get into that, I'd like to talk a little bit about Camp Atterbury. You know, not a lot of people know what Camp Atterbury is, so let me describe briefly what Camp Atterbury is. Camp Atterbury is 46,000 acres of federally owned property for the most part and federally supported, whereby National Guard, Reserve Unit, active duty units can train for their wartime mission. It's also a place where we use our restricted airspace, our air gunnery ranges, and other things to do testing and evaluation for military purposes. It has the capability of housing over 10,000 people, soldiers usually, in dorm-like barracks that are supported by world-class dining facilities, as well as a medical treatment facility that is actually there at Camp Atterbury. It is also supported by 110 state employees that are federally reimbursed, their salaries are, and then we have a garrison command down there that makes up about 220 soldiers that work either full-time or part-time at the facility. Camp Atterbury in the early 1940s mobilized over 100,000 men for World War II and then supported their return and their medical status through the Army hospitals that were erected there. Camp Atterbury also was a site for World War II prisoners from the Italy campaign following the war for a temporary period. Some of those prisoners actually settled in the United States. And Camp Atterbury has mobilized over 120,000 soldiers in the last 12 years for different, in support of our federal mission. Camp Atterbury is well prepared. It's got the right facilities to conduct this temporary mission, and we have the right processes in place to do this mission and to do it right. And so where we are right now is this. There are individuals at a point of debarkation throughout Europe and the Middle East that are being vetted through a multi-agency, multi-layer, multi-dimensional process that includes our agency partners from Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, the Department of State, the FBI, and the National Counterterrorism Commission, as well as other intelligence partners. They are there now vetting everyone that is leaving the point of departure in that region. They will then be cleared to fly to the United States, where they will enter a point of embarkation, and then they will be vetted again through these same processes to validate all of the things that were discovered before they came here and to further set the conditions for the types of visas and or credentials that they hold. Once they pass through that screening process, then they will come to Camp Atterbury, where they will go through a reception, staging, and onward integration process that then puts together a deliberate, detailed, and thoughtful process of vetting done by the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Patrol, FBI, and the Department of State. They will also, during this period of time, be screened medically and be held in a medical hold status for what we think will be about 14 days to determine their medical condition. So that status will be determined through that 14 days by our interagency partners. Their medical status will then be determined as well. And we have right now coming to Camp Atterbury our partners from Fort Hood, over 800 soldiers coming to Camp Atterbury that are an organization of military police, a very robust package of medical augmentees to include physician's assistants, nurses, and medics. We will also have an enabler package that will help us with life support packages and logistical sustainment of the evacuees while they are at Camp Atterbury. We have identified where there may be potential gaps by the Army and by the Indiana National Guard, and we are contracting with the Army Sustainment Command to fill those gaps where there might be weaknesses. So, for example, one of the things the governor charged me was to pay particular attention to what pressure we might put on agencies outside of Camp Atterbury. In light of the fact that we are having a higher positivity rate in COVID, we understand that emergency room wait times are higher than normal. We do not want to pressure local hospitals. We have also partnered with the local community, the Edinburgh Police Department, Columbus Police, Johnson County Sheriff, and others to build a partnership to understand what security concerns could potentially arise and how we might react and anticipate those concerns. So we have set the conditions with the enabler package. That is an active duty package. It came with an active duty general. And because of that, in our partnership with the National Guard, we are appointing a dual status commander down there, Brigadier General Tim Winslow. He will be the dual status commander that will be responsible for oversight of all the activities at the facility. I feel very confident in the enabler package that they are sending us that we will be able to accomplish our mission in a very robust manner. Additionally to the Fort Hood battalion that is coming to us, Army Medical Command at Fort Knox is also sending a medical package up to help us with the medical condition and screening processes that will go on with the evacuees. So what happens once they come to Camp Atterbury? Once they arrive at Camp Atterbury, that's where they will be put into the RSO process, reception, staging, and onward integration. That process will greet the evacuees, and then we will put them through a series of medical screening requirements that will be done by our medical enabler packages, as well as our partners from Department of State, Homeland Security, and Citizens and Immigration that will be on there as well to continue the vetting process. We have identified potentially a cohort of evacuees that may have COVID. So they will receive 3 COVID tests en route to Camp Atterbury, 1 at point of departure in Europe or the Middle East, 1 when they hit the point of entry at either Dulles or Philadelphia, and then again at Camp Atterbury by our medical providers. Additionally, if there are signs or symptoms of COVID once they arrive, we will be able to test and treat them accordingly. And we have predetermined sites for quarantine or isolation, things of that sort. So we have been talking with Fort McCoy and Fort Pickett. I was on the phone with the Adjutant General from Virginia this morning, getting lessons learned. They've been doing this for about 10 days now, so we have some lessons learned from them. How long will they be at Camp Atterbury? And so this is what we believe is unfolding now, and this is in concert with our discussion with the Director of the Homeland Security personnel. We believe that there will be what I would describe as a 14-day process, about 14 days of a medical screening process once they land, once they come to Camp Atterbury. We will do that. They will also then be a vetting process that will determine what status they are in, and commensurate with that status will determine their ability to leave Camp Atterbury. The Director of Homeland Security described it as, once we get through the medical screening process, single-digit weeks, the non-governmental organizations who are already calling and we're already synchronizing that effort will come to Camp Atterbury, and dependent upon their visa status and where they are in the vetting process, will then resettle them throughout the United States. And so that's what we think will happen once they come to Camp Atterbury, once they go through that medical process. Single-digit weeks is what's been described to us. We are fully capable of going beyond that if it's necessary. Right now, our planning assumption is to plan for 5,000, and Camp Atterbury is well equipped to do 5,000. We think they will start flowing sometime later this week, maybe early next week, still to be determined. As in regard to COVID, we are very cognizant of the pressure that we could put on the local community because of COVID. So we are very aware of COVID, and I will tell you this, I've been at the hip with Dr. Box since March of 19 and Governor Holcomb, and we have been responding to COVID in a very strong manner since that date. We've done everything from food banks to testing to vaccinations. So we have a pretty good handle on what to expect with COVID, and we're going to be able to leverage that experience over the last 20 months to be able to help with any COVID outbreak. And so some of the questions are, can they leave Camp Atterbury? That is all determined upon their visa status, which is determined by our interagency partners. So depending on what their status is will determine on how the non-governmental organization comes in and takes them and actually helps them get resettled in the country. So that will determine that. I'm looking to see if I missed anything that the governor outlaid was cost. So there is no burden on the state for this. This is a complete federal mission. And so the federal contracting that's coming in is coming through a variety of agencies. There is funding from the Department of State. There is funding from from Department of Homeland Security. And there is all of that money is being sent right now through the Army Budgeting Office. It has been made readily available to Camp Atterbury, and we have no issues right now with the funding that's coming in order to do this. As far as donations go, there has been an outpouring of donations that's beyond belief. It truly is amazing that all of the Hoosier care and kindness that's on display right now really makes me proud to both be a Hoosier and an American. And so we are in the process of setting up a formal method for receiving donations and then processing those donations, inventorying them, and getting them into the right hands of the evacuees. That process is still emerging. However, today, you can call the Indiana National Guard, 317-247-3559, and Ms. Laura Martz will take your information and take your efforts to help. And then once we build this apparatus to help with this outpouring of kindness and love, we will make sure that we get your information into the right hands.
Will you repeat the most popular Laura's phone number in the state of Indiana?
I will. 317-247-3559. And she is there and ready to take your information and to help put this into a database that then we can get it into the right hands of the right organizations that will lead the effort on donations. The other thing that I want to talk about a little bit, and Governor, you may want to amplify this, is yes, Camp Atterbury is a temporary facility to house evacuees that will be processed by national non-governmental organizations for onward integration into America. But it's deeper than that with this governor. He asked me, what can our state agencies do to help beyond just the Army processing? The Army reception and staging and onward integration plan. How can BMB help us? How can we be kind to these evacuees to repay them for what they paid for us for over 20 years of support in our fight against the Taliban? How can the Department of Health leverage their refugee directorate to help? How can FSSA help? So we're going to explore that, and we're going to deepen this cause, and we're going to try to help them become assimilated into America and to become Americans just like the rest of us. I think I hit all. I learned a long time ago, sir, if it's more than 3 tasks, I got to write them down, and I think I got them all. So, yes, sir.
I think you did. Happy to open it up for any questions, but I think the 3 key words is this is a mission, time sensitive, it's a process, and it is temporary until it becomes not, until it becomes, as you just alluded to, this outpouring of Hoosiers who want to help, whether it be churches, individuals, businesses. I can't tell you how many businesses have said, when can I start hiring? And this day will come, but we've got a mission to complete before we get there. With that, I'll open it up to any questions you might have.
Eric Berman from WIBC.
Oh,
Thank you. Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
What is, two questions. First one, though, what is Indiana's capacity and willingness to accept evacuees for permanent residency as opposed to the temporary housing?
there is a process that has to be conducted first and foremost, and as General Lyles just stated, we want to be there on the back end of that process to welcome these evacuees to permanent freedom. And you know, little did I know when I started talking about our mission, our efforts ongoing to be one Indiana for all, that it would expand my initial definition. But I do believe that folks will fall in love with Indiana as much as we have. And I hope some of this talent stays close, understanding that many of them will have familial draws around the country. And so that's where the NGOs become really important, and our state will be there as part of the process.
Second, if you'll allow me to go off topic for a second, you have an executive order expiring today. You said you were talking.
Oh, that's right.
I'm sure it's in the date book notifications.
Walking and chewing gum. Yeah.
What's the status of that? And if that's still pending, can you elaborate on what you're discussing with the healthcare stakeholders?
Well, it's pending, but for not very long. It will be hot off the press, so to speak, in a matter of hours.
Can you elaborate on what's being discussed to shape that?
We just want to make sure that to the extent that the state can help hospitals in this latest surge, that we're there. And we want to be smart about it. And we don't want anything to be counterproductive or overlook anything. And so we took time to sit down, huddle up, and bought a few more days. It'll end up not being that 48-hour period, but it'll be out on the street shortly, and I don't think you'll be surprised by anything.
Thank you.
Next is Rob Burgess from the Wabash Plain Dealer.
Hello, good to be with you this morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning. I had a question for the General and one for you, Governor. General, will this cause strain on the National Guard's pandemic response that's already in progress? Are you going to have to pull people away from vaccination and testing sites to help deal with this? And Governor, just real quick, have you given any thought to reinstating the mask mandate given the recent rise in cases in the state?
I'll answer my question. It's Wednesday. No.
Thanks for the question. So as far as our COVID response goes, we continue to partner with Indiana Department of Health. Right now, we have soldiers that are helping Dr. Box with her effort to rid the state of COVID, and we see no risk to that operation. Indiana National Guard is the fourth largest guard state in the nation. We have a very strong and robust capability to help with both missions. I have outlined our priorities of effort. Our priorities of effort are to COVID and then to this mission, and there will be no gap in service to COVID operations.
Next question is from Rich Nye, WTHR.
So the evacuees will be living in the dorms then, I assume. Are these dorms largely empty, I assume, most of the time, but always at the ready? And what could you describe a little bit about what kind of living arrangements they will be in? Are these, 100 people to one room, 20 people to a room? What do they look like?
Yes. Thanks for the question. So Camp Atterbury, being a training facility, is extremely busy from April to August because it's typically used by National Guard and Reserve Component soldiers. We have displaced some training units that were coming to Camp Atterbury to other local facilities, and we've done that very timely in order to lessen the impact to our readiness. And so we see no impact to our readiness because we're able to, we've got, for example, a division warfighter that was scheduled to happen at Camp Atterbury. About 4,000 to 5,000 soldiers participate in that. We're going to move that to another facility in Pennsylvania. Very transparent to the unit. Readiness will be sustained. As far as the lodging goes, so once they hit Camp Atterbury and they go through the process, that will determine where they go for lodging. So if you have a family, we have the ability to house families in some of our dorms because they are, I would say, the barracks of today are a lot different than the barracks that I participated in when I came into the Army. And they have air conditioning, they have heating, they have toilet, plumbing, and all those things with that particular room. Then we have what I would describe as open bay barracks. Those barracks potentially could be used to house single males or single females. But again, very nice barracks. All of the heating and air systems, all of the plumbing and all those things work very well. Camp Atterbury is a 21st century multi-dimensional facility that has the most elaborate barracks complexes probably in the Army inventory because of our recent participation in mobilizing soldiers.
And I'm not sure if you addressed this. Are there additional Indiana National Guard members being activated to support this?
Yes, there are. And so the Garrison Command at Camp Atterbury consists of both a full-time mix and a part-time mix. And that Garrison Command is made up of 220 soldiers, and their entire mission is to run Camp Atterbury. And so we are looking to mobilize that Garrison Command to help with the oversight and the command and control of all the activities on Camp Atterbury.
Next question is from Max Lewis, WSBT.
Morning,
Hi,
Max.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I had a couple questions. One of them for General Lyles. You had mentioned that, you know, whether or not the refugees are able to leave Camp Atterbury depends on their visa statuses. Can you sort of, you know, depending on what you know about that, can you go into what those different visa statuses are and what that means for their, you know, ability to leave and whatnot? And then I have a question for the governor afterwards.
Sure. So the visa statuses are special immigrant visa, and a special immigrant visa comes with certain rights to actually leave Camp Atterbury after the 14 days of medical screening because they have been vetted properly to allow them to leave Camp Atterbury for that particular reason. Then there are priority 1, priority 2, or other levels of visa that will determine when the evacuees can actually leave Camp Atterbury. We have certain cases at the other facilities that have received the special immigrant visas. They come in, do their medical quarantine, and then they are quickly picked up by family members, or they are quickly retrieved by a family member, and they move and integrate in with their families. Then when you talk about the priority 1, the priority 2 that requires perhaps a little more vetting, that goes on at Camp Atterbury by our agency partners, and then you determine those statuses, and then you also determine, do these evacuees have families? Do they have contacts? And that'll be all for the non-governmental organizations to determine.
Okay, thank you. And just a quick follow-up. I don't know if you addressed this. Will the refugees be offered vaccines when they get to the camp?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're working through right now is offering the COVID vaccine, as well as administering all of the required immunizations that are mandatory for becoming a visa holder. And we're working with our state partners or our agency partners right now to determine what those requirements are, and we are fully capable of administering all of those vaccines.
And then, Governor, I know you had just said that you have no plans to institute the statewide mask mandate. But as far as mandating masks in K through 12 schools, I know we've heard a lot from area school districts who have had, you know, huge numbers of people, kids quarantining, and hospitals, children's hospitals are filling up with sick kids. I wondered if you've given any thought to that particular mandate in schools.
No, we heard loud and clear from locals that they wanted this to be a locally mandated, fully support it. understand it. It's regrettable that so many of our kids are out of the classroom on any given one day. It's not just regrettable, it's avoidable. And to the skeptics or unbelievers or deniers, I would just plead to look at the facts, to look at the numerical data that shows we can all stay safe if you get vaccinated. And that truly is, that my appeal is to get vaccinated. This is what is interfering with our supply chains. This is what is holding parts of our economy back. This is what is pulling our kids out of school. And while we have, 3.1 million some who are vaccinated, that the balance leaves a lot to spread. And that is having an adverse effect on others, not just potentially yourself, but others, and our economy, and our kids' education. So I would just ask to think beyond yourself.
Our next question is from Russ McQuaid, Fox 59.
For the general, when you talk about the offer of COVID vaccines and other vaccinations, should I assume that also includes a medical vetting, a determination, and potential vaccines, let's say for polio and measles?
Yes, sir.
And then can you explain for us what's going on inside the wire at Camp Atterbury today as far as site preps, as far as troops arriving, and is there an opportunity for us to get in there and shoot video?
So for the last 2 weeks, we got a warning order that this could potentially happen, and we've been working with Army Sustainment Command to build the contracting capacity to fill the identified gaps. So they're there right now doing that today. Additionally, the 27 Cav from Fort Hood, Texas is flowing in today, and they should all be on the ground by midnight tonight. As well as we should finalize the contracting pieces that are necessary to house up to 5,000 evacuees. Out of respect for their privacy, we want to respect their privacy. And for right now, there will be no visitations into Camp Atterbury. However, we could potentially set the conditions for maybe something outside of Camp Atterbury if they are willing to do that. But out of respect for their privacy right now, we are not going to do that.
Well, I was looking for access before they show up, so it certainly wouldn't violate anybody's privacy if we go in and shoot video before they arrive.
I'd be happy to talk with the post commander there and get back with you and let you know about that.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we just don't want to sacrifice any part of the integrity of this mission, and it's underway right now. And so, privacy aside, I don't want anything to interrupt the mission and the staging. General, you might, and for the record, Russ said shoot video on Camp Atterbury, not shoot. Could you talk a little bit about the medical equipment that will, to his point, be brought inside the wire, tuberculosis, other
Right.
Concerns that we have? He mentioned a couple, but
Yes, sir.
This is a bigger than just COVID.
Yes, sir. So at Camp Atterbury right now, we have a troop medical clinic, and that troop medical clinic is set to handle level 1, level 2 type trauma care. We are going to build that capacity out to build it up to higher levels of care with the Fort Knox medical team, as well as the team that is coming from Fort Hood. And so we will have a very robust package of medical providers to help with treating and evaluating the evacuees. And we, through the experience of the other facilities that are receiving evacuees, know and understand the condition that they will come to us at Camp Atterbury, and we're working very hard to set the conditions to receive them in anticipation of these conditions.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Jack Springate, WNDU.
Good morning.
Good morning. I was curious to hear if you guys could clarify, when these refugees, evacuees would be arriving to Camp Atterbury.
Yeah.
And also, what are the factors that determine, where they may go after that 14-day, quarantine, and then if they are granted the visa that allows them to leave immediately, what are the factors that determine where they go, either in Indiana or the rest of the United States?
You want to repeat the when?
Yes, sir. So as far as when, right now, our planning assumption is later this week, into the weekend and early next week, we could potentially receive the first 1,000. The conditions are set at Camp Atterbury today to receive 1,000, and so we are working with the Army North Command in order to understand when we will actually start receiving the evacuees, but we're anticipating later this week or into the weekend.
And potentially in increments of 1,000.
In increments of 1,000 up to 5,000.
And
Our next question is from
wait, I
Brandon.
think he had a second part. What was?
Where will they be resettled?
Oh yeah. What's the status? You know, it's like any other case when they clear every hurdle and check every box, then they could be in San Diego, en route to San Diego.
Yeah. Some will come with family members in the United States, and they will be quickly reunited with family members. Some will come with no family members, and so it'll be up to the non-governmental organizations to resettle them, depending on their status.
Our next question is from Brandon Smith, WFYI.
Good morning, gentlemen. Let me ask a quick clarifying question on the idea of them being able to leave Camp Atterbury after that 14-day medical screening. Obviously, permanent, I understand. Is there an idea, clarify for me, can they leave temporarily once they get that approval as well? And if so, how are we handling financial resources they might need to do that, transportation resources, or just help navigating a country they might never have been to?
So those things will reside with our interagency partners. So for example, can they leave Camp Atterbury after their 14 days of medical screening, after they've been thoroughly and thoughtfully vetted and we understand what their visas allow them to do? Yes, they can. Everyone that comes to Camp Atterbury, the U.S. government will know who they are. They will have a firm understanding of who they are and what their status is pursuant to their visa. And so what we will do is work with our interagency partners to sit down with them and to describe for them what we have available to them, and all of the services they need are right there at Camp Atterbury, and we feel like that will help them understand that their desire to leave at Camp Atterbury needs to be worked, and the conditions need to be set to do that. And we are working very closely with the local governments and the local citizens to inform them about what we have at Camp Atterbury and the potential that they may leave our facilities. The financial help, the transportation help, all those things will be done by our interagency partners in association with the non-governmental organizations.
And then as a follow-up to that, Senator Mike Braun has raised concerns about safety issues, and he said, every local law enforcement in the state needs to know exactly who all of these people are. How much information will local law enforcement get? And when I say local law enforcement, are we talking about just the folks around Atterbury, or are we talking the entire state of Indiana?
So for right now, our communications have been with local law enforcement in and around Camp Atterbury. My intent is to let the situation develop a little bit and then to communicate with Doug Carter, the superintendent of police, to set the conditions for him and other agencies to know exactly what's going on at Camp Atterbury. And I actually spoke to him about that yesterday.
And we, Brandon, had a call yesterday afternoon with our entire congressional delegation.
Our next question is from Abdul Hakim, Indy Politics.
Good morning, Abdul.
Good morning, Governor. Good morning, General. Governor, question for you. With respect to safety and security of the refugees, obviously Hoosiers are very welcoming. As you mentioned earlier, people want to donate and help. But there's also seems to be a segment of our population that is skeptical, to say the least. And some folks are actually making on social media some rather racist comments. What can you do? What is your message to those folks, and what can you do to guarantee, the safety of these refugees when they come here to Indiana?
You want to go through the three-step process. Actually, it's really four in terms of vetting, because to get on the plane in Kabul, there was a low threshold.
Yes,
But
sir. So just to reiterate, we know who they are when they come to Camp Atterbury because of this thorough vetting process. The four-step process starts in Kabul with the right credentials to get on the plane. Then it goes into Europe or the Middle East, a very robust vetting process. Then once they land in the United States, again, it's hit again. Then it's hit again at Camp Atterbury. And so we absolutely know who they are. We know what their visa requirements are, and we know that they are safe. We are working very closely with law enforcement agencies to help set the conditions for them to potentially leave Camp Atterbury.
And again, Abdul, I would appeal to people's hearts and minds in the sense that these are the same folks who, for decades, have assisted and aided us in on a very dangerous terrain. Translators, helping with our military, diplomatic efforts, people who worry about waking up tomorrow, and understanding that we're going to be, for those citizens out there who may question, this is where transparency will be paramount, to make sure that we're sharing what we know real time, and we'll be very honest. If we don't have a question answered, we'll go get the answer, and work with our federal partners to not just commence but conclude this mission.
Our next question is from Nikki Kelly, the Journal-Gazette.
Hi. Two quick questions, gentlemen. First, kind of a follow-up to Abdul's question, which is less about, well, basically, are you concerned that Camp Atterbury could become a target for any attacks, is the question. And then secondly, Governor, I was just curious, did you actually have any say in this? In other words, could you have blocked it if you were uncomfortable, or you just kind of have to be along for the ride?
You want to go first, and then
Yes.
I'll talk about my
So
avoidance of a temper tantrum?
Sure. So physical security measures have been heightened at Camp Atterbury, as they always are when we have guests that train there from different agencies. We have increased our level of awareness, our situational awareness in and around the facility, and we are monitoring those things that would trigger our state of readiness. But right now, we have no indicators that are saying that we have become a target of any sort by doing this mission. But we are alert, and we are mindful that that could present itself. And with the military police that we have coming from the 27 Cav from Fort Hood, augmented by the current security apparatuses at Camp Atterbury, we feel very confident that we can provide a safe and secure environment for all of the evacuees.
Nikki, I guess I could have made it difficult. Could have maybe thrown a temper tantrum. Could have been an obstacle. A, that's not who I am. B, that's not helping. And we are what's been obvious to me and for a long time, and especially over the last couple weeks, as there's been a lot of speculation about what may happen, I have grown more confident in our ability to know who these evacuees are and to process them as if they're going through boot camp. And I just think about the last 10 years, 20 years, folks who are either trying to get on a plane to freedom or going overland under the cover of night, just hoping they won't get stopped and executed like their family members and neighbors have been. We need to be there for folks who are there for us, period. And we got to do it smartly, and we got to be safe about it, and we've got to go the extra distance. We've got to make sure that we're using everything at our disposal to welcome folks here who we sure welcomed their help.
Our next question is from Leanne from the Daily Journal.
Good morning.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. So, Daily Journal covers the area near Camp Atterbury, and people have been wondering about how protected they'll be from from the evacuees when they leave, and if there's any concern about that, what assurance would you give them about their protection, and what role do local police play in that? I was also wondering if you'll have any reliance on local hospitals to help with any medical treatment, and if you've coordinated that with them, if so.
Thanks for the question. So as far as the evacuees presenting a risk to the surrounding community, that risk has been all but eliminated by the vetting process. And I just restate that we know who's coming to Camp Atterbury, and the vetting process that is being done has all but reduced the risk of things that might happen by the evacuees, number one. Number two, we have worked extremely hard and put forth a deliberate planning process to mitigate the pressure outside of Camp Atterbury to the local community. We do not want to put any pressure on Johnson County Hospital or any other hospital in the area, and we're taking measures to stop or to prevent that through contracting regionally to bring medical equipment to Camp Atterbury, such as the necessary x-ray machines for TB discovery, the necessary equipment to do the medical screening processes. All of those capabilities are coming to Camp Atterbury, and I'll tell you, I've been working with Dr. Box and Dr. Kaufman to understand what we think pre-existing conditions might wind up landing at Camp Atterbury, and working very hard to put the right control measures in place to prevent the pressure on outside facilities of Camp Atterbury.
In addition to the hundreds of active Army duty personnel coming in for security and some of the to assist and quite frankly lead on some of these efforts.
Our next question is from Caitlin Lang, Indy Star.
Hello. First of all, I just want to follow up on Nikki's earlier question. Did you offer to use Indiana's services for refugees to the federal government, or did they sort of tell you this was happening?
We asked a lot of questions about the cost, who would be tasked. I, at the very outset, said that literally what I've already shared time and time again is I want to aid those who aided us. I don't take for granted what these folks have put on the line for me and our state and our country. Now, having said that, that led to my questions on what is this? How is this going to task us, and how do we partner just like the Guard does, whether it has to do with COVID or a natural disaster, or this is just yet another mission, and so here we are.
And sorry for sounding like a broken record on this. I know you've said that you have no plans to re-implement a mask mandate. Can we expect to see any other restrictions in this executive order today? And if not, is there a certain data point where you would look at implementing any sort of restrictions, such as capacity, mask, anything?
I'm trying to do everything I can to get people to see the answer to the problem. And the answer to the problem is getting vaccinated. And I hate it that people have to learn that cold, hard fact through death and hospitalization and negative impact to ones they love after the fact. The answer is the vaccine, and the further we stray away from that, now the longer this will take. And there are measures that can be taken according to the local governing body that can assist in your efforts with people who are skeptics or non-believers that the vaccine is the answer. And I applaud those, be it the private sector, be it local government units who are making those decisions, but not at this time, no, Caitlin.
And is there any sort of data point that would drive you to make that decision?
I don't have one in mind at this time.
Our next question is from Emily Ketterer, IBJ.
Hi, I just have one quick question. So you said Camp Atterbury has the capacity or is well equipped to take 5,000 refugees. Is there a capacity to take more if needed? And could you be prepared for that if that comes?
Yes. Camp Atterbury has enough hard stand building to house 10,000 soldiers. And so we could rapidly grow to 10,000 if needed. And we could even exceed that capacity with further build out and contracts.
Our next question is Whitney Downer, CNHI.
Good morning. I wanted to ask specifically about if there was going to be any mental health care availability. A lot of these refugees are going to be incredibly traumatized, and I know that some of them will only be there for 14 days, but I was wondering if Camp Atterbury had any capacity to offer those types of services.
Yes, there are mental health practitioners inside of the medical augmentation packages that we are getting. And in my conversations with FSSA, they have also volunteered to lend a hand if we need it. So yes, the resiliency of all of the evacuees will be tested because they have been through a very traumatic 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And so we recognize that as a pre-existing condition when they land, and we are setting the conditions to help with that.
And then also with these NGOs, when exactly are they going to be on the ground, helping those refugees get to where they're going to go, and are any of those Indiana-based?
We expect the NGOs to start arriving today and to continue to arrive throughout the process. I am vaguely familiar with some Indiana organizations that are calling and offering their assistance, and we are going to work very hard to help them understand the processes so that we can rely upon Indiana NGOs to help us.
Thank you.
Our next question is David Williams, Wish TV.
Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, David.
Two-part question. One, do we have any idea roughly how many refugees have decided or might decide to stay here in Indiana? And then my next question, once they decide to leave Camp Atterbury, could you go into a little more detail about the services that will be in place and ready for them once they decide to leave?
The answer to the first part is no, we don't. We're not there yet. And the second, you just might want to take off the list real quick.
Yes, sir. So the second part of your question, once they leave Indiana, what services will be available to them when they're resettled in San Francisco or Detroit or someplace like that? Or here. So I can tell you inside of Indiana, there will be a very strong package of state agencies that are willing to help. The governor made that very clear to me throughout this process. As far as onward integration into other communities throughout the United States, I'm not familiar with what the NGOs provide, but I can tell you USAID and other organizations are very good at handling this, and we expect that they'll handle this very professionally and do a good job with it.
Are you able to give a couple examples of what services could be here in Indiana?
Right. Yes. So inside of the Department of Health, there is a branch that helps with resettlement, and Dr. Box is tuned into that, and she's willing to help. Inside of FSSA, there are resiliency and other things associated with mental health and therapy. Then there's, at our disposal, the governor told me today, BMV, how do you help them get a driver's license? How do you assimilate them into the schools? How can we get Department of Education involved? So he's given us the green light to help with that process. And as this starts to mature and we start to see where we are, we'll work very hard to go beyond just receiving, staging, and onward integration. We will help to resettle those that want to remain in Indiana the right way.
If they have the status to remain, the services will be there for them. And for every employer that's saying, I'll hire 450 of them right now as soon as they're cleared, so Department of Workforce Development, you can just go through every agency, every department, and if they are cleared, then we will have their attention while they're inside the wire. And there's that goes right back to the process, this temporary process, and moving from one stage to the next, to the next, to the next. We'll make sure that as they determine what lane they want to get in, where they want to go, that hopefully our Hoosier hospitality shines through and is attractive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last question is from Tom Davies, AP.
Hello. A couple quick things, Governor. Is there plans or accommodations being made for any of the children that come to get them in schools, or will that be something that happens after they are resettled?
Yeah. After, you can elaborate. This is, if you keep the word temporary top of mind, we're not there yet. That's not part of this mission at this time, because they don't have the status or they're not in that, at that stage. So education is not something the federal government is throwing resources behind.
And then my other question is with the recent strain hospitals that are around the state, is the state taking any additional actions now with your new executive order or other things to assist the hospitals in the situation that they're facing?
Yeah, we're working with them in a as timely, real-time manner to make sure when we're seeing the diversions that they do have their resources. But there's no draconian measures where we're saying we're going to suspend non-emergency procedures, as an example. But we want to make sure that, again, understanding who is responsible for these diversions, and that are the very folks, 99% of them, that come in and aren't vaccinated. So no draconian measures at this time. But again, the executive order will be updated and out on the street in a matter of hours.
This concludes today's press conference.